Reading from the Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 17, text 7. Aharastvapi sarvasya. Is that right? 17:7. Aharastvapi sarvasya. Jividha bhavati prayak. Yagyastapastata danam Tesham vedamimang shvinu Harastvapi sarvasya Jividho bhavati prayak Yagyastapastata danam Tesham vedamimang shvinu. Please chant. Harastapi sarvasya Rivido bhavati priya Yagyastapatadanam Tesham vedamimang shvinu Harastapi sarvasya Jivido bhavati priya Yagyastapastatadanam Tesham bhedamimang shvinu Harasapi sarvasya Jivido bhavati priya Yagyastapastatadanam Tesham bhedamimang shvinu Harastapi sarvasya Srivido bhavati priya Yagyastapastatadanam Tesham bhedamimang shvinu Ahara, eating. Two, certainly. Api, also. Sarvasya, of everyone. Trivida, of three kinds. Bhavati, there is. Priyan, dear. Yagya, sacrifice. Tapa, austerity. Tata, also. Danam, charity. Desham, of them. Bhedam, the differences. Imam, this. Shrinu, here. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Even the food each person prefers is of three kinds, according to the three modes of material nature. The same is true of sacrifices, austerities, and charity. Now hear of the distinction between them. Purport. In terms of different situations in the modes of material nature, there are differences in the manner of eating and performing sacrifices, austerities, and charities. They are not all conducted on the same level. Those who can understand analytically what kind of performances are in what modes of material nature are actually wise. Those who consider all kinds of sacrifice or food or charity to be the same cannot discriminate, and they are foolish. There are missionary workers who advocate that one can do whatever he likes and attain perfection. But these foolish guides are not acting according to the direction of the scripture. They are manufacturing ways and misleading the people in general. of course, this chapter entitled "The Divisions of Faith" is interesting from the perspective of those who are desirous of analyzing things according to their material appearances. The devotees have a different criteria of analysis, which is based on something other than just the mere division according to the modes of material nature. From the very beginning, we understand that whatever one does, whatever he eats, whatever he offers, should be done as a sacrifice to Krishna. So this is transcendental. This is something which is beyond just what kind of food is a mode of goodness. We see nowadays there's much emphasis on someone being vegan or vegetarian or so many other varieties of diet. And people are choosing not based on what is in their spiritual self-interest, but what is in their material. They're thinking, what can help my body? What can lessen the impact on Mother Earth? They have some sentimental appreciation. But this completely misses the point. That whatever one does, irrespective of his appreciation of material circumstances, everything should be done as an offering to Krishna. And even that has limitations. Tatyahara prayasascha prajalpanemagraha. Prabhupada has told us that over-endeavoring, over-collecting, over anything. So this, for us, has some meaning. One should not eat too much, not too little. This is the path that we seek. Not that I have to consider every little, oh, wait, is this food in the mode of goodness? Is this food? If we eat prasadam, automatically all these questions are answered. We're taking prasadam in the temple, I don't have to think, oh, is this khichdi? What mode is this khichdi? What will be the production? What's going to happen? Of course, even these foods, because in the mode of goodness, food should not be overly spiced. But we see that in the brahmacharya ashram, one has to have khichdi, which is very spicy. At least in Krishna Balaram. So someone may object, oh, this is not the mode of goodness. Too much chili. But it's prasadam. This is the thing. So we take it. That's another austerity. A different type of austerity. But all these things are so easily answered once one surrenders to Krishna. He comes to the temple. We were just talking how the devotees went to Srila, on the recommendation of their teacher in material high school. They went to see Srila Prabhupada because they were discussing vegetarianism. And everyone knows that we are the kitchen religion. Practically speaking, we were one of the main, what do you want to say, influences on the vegetarian movement worldwide. This is, it's practically not in dispute. Some people may want to take credit from other places. But having seen from my youth the different movements, that I was born in the, what do they call it, the 50s. They call us boomers, right after World War II. So when we grew up, there was no consideration of vegetarianism. It wasn't on anyone's radar. It didn't exist. But come around the same time that Srila Prabhupada is coming to America, exactly the same time. Matter of fact, one time I was talking to Dina Bandha and we were reminiscing about our time spent on the Lower East Side of Manhattan called Greenwich Village, also the East Village, where Prabhupada had matchless gifts. And there were a few, at that time, vegetarian restaurants. And many people used to go there and congregate. And Dinabandhu used to go one time. Oh, you used to go? Oh, yes, we used to go. And nobody knew each other, but the same places were there. But it was just at that time, very rare. And people's consciousness, who was it that came to Srila Prabhupada? People like Allen Ginsberg. Because he was there also. We would see him frequently in the park, in these places like that. So these were called the Beat generation, beatniks. They weren't called hippies then. Hippies was a later term. In those days it was called beatniks. So it's an interesting transition, this juxtaposition there, and this overlapping of time periods. And it was reflected in the diet. And as people were seeking out something like vegetarianism, it means that their consciousness was also getting a little purification. And that allowed them to appreciate Srila Prabhupada. I became a vegetarian before meeting Srila Prabhupada. I can't say that that had anything to do with it, but it certainly didn't hurt. Because we understood that this is a cruel thing, this animal slaughter. But we were sentimental. It wasn't for spiritual purposes. But the first time we went to a temple, I remember I couldn't understand the kirtan. I couldn't relate to it. I came into the temple, famous temple, Henry Street. And the kirtan was in full swing, and the whole building was shaking. Literally shaking. And Krishnamurti knows. Shaking. And as people were ecstatic, I was thinking, I thought that was a little strange. I said, what? People are dancing and dancing. You know, we saw these things only in rock concerts. But I came because the free feast was advertised, free vegetarian feast. And I had been chanting the Mahamantra just casually, because the devotees used to pass out mantra cards attached to little bags of prasadam called luglus. Remember the luglus? Everybody who was in Henry Street. They were invented by the devotees there, Nanda Kishore, old devotees, and many of the Mangalananda, Bharadwaj. The first health bar, actually. Very first. Cashews, dates, almonds, figs, walnuts, raisins, sesame seeds, all cooked and rolled into cookie sheets and then cut and packaged as small bars. And the karmis, in those days we called everybody karmi who wasn't a devotee. The karmis would see us on the street and they would ask us specifically, do you have any of those candy bars? They would specifically ask us. And if they gave a donation, we would give them a Back to Godhead magazine. Everybody knew Krishna Prasadam. Everybody. Famous thing. And it was only the Sunday feast. We didn't do distribution of prasadam on the streets or anything like that. So, to the side of the temple room was one hallway. That hallway led around the corner and you could go to Prabhupada's quarters or downstairs to the prasadam room, or down to the basement, the book room. So in that hallway was a table. And on the table the devotees would had books. So that's where I got my first actual Bhagavad-Gita. I had a paperback that I used to carry in my pocket because it was the cool thing to do. Have a scriptural, some spiritual. So I had Bhagavad-Gita, small, thin edition. And The devotees who I used to meet outside. I used to work in a place called the New York Public Library on 5th Avenue and 42nd Street. And the devotees would chant right outside my window. My window faced 5th Avenue. So they would come almost every day, chant there. Nice devotees, Loi Taksha. Such sweet devotees, chanting the holy names. And you could always tell the devotees were different. We didn't know why they were different. But they were, as many people used to comment, they're just a different aura. They're bright-faced. Everyone recognized that there was something special because they were pure. We didn't know what in those days, but they were. But I didn't take the Gita at that time because I wasn't convinced. I gave a donation, got a lagdu, and chanted the Mahamantra. And that brought me to Henry Street later. So here I am in Henry Street getting my first Gita. And then tasting the prasadam, my first time tasting a full. And in those days, a feast in America, I mean, everything was so opulent. At that time, so many, like I said, Mangalananda, Agni Dev had been, even Hari Kesh, Maharaj, Prabhu, all the cooks that used to cook in those days. And incredible 12, 13 course feasts. Nobody can, it's very difficult to imagine. Here they have a feast, it's nice. It's nothing like the feast on Henry Street. Cannot compare. So, and practically if you tasted that feast, you never forgot it. There's that term Prabhupada uses, once having tasted the lotus feet, rasagraha. One never forgets Krishna. That was Henry Street. If you went to Henry Street and you tasted the feast, you could not forget it. You almost had to come back. And you had to bring people because it was so good. And many, many people joined like that. One person came, 4 people came back. So this is not just food in the mode of goodness or some categorical, analysis. This is, you can say, and it's a big difference. The deities Radha Govinda are very special. Prabhupada installed them in 1972. And the devotees were very attached to Radha Govinda. Very attached. There was a small set of Jagannath deities. And then there was the original Panchatattva painting, painted by Jadharan. That was the original. Before any deities in the movement, there was the Panchatattva. So that was there. So Panchatattva, Radha Govinda, Prabhupada's Radha Krishna deities. Those are Prabhupada's original deities brought from India. So those Radha Krishna, they were the second deities in the movement, besides Panchatattva. And then big Radha Govinda. So a very special temple, very special devotees. Of course, all devotees are special. When you first join, you remember these devotees very clearly. Who you spoke to you, who argued with you, because I used to argue. I wasn't convinced yet. But the devotees were so sweet and so patient. And they could defeat any argument. But very, with great patience and with attention to the specific concerns. Not just shooting out some shlokas and, trying to see what sticks. No, that was okay. You have some misunderstanding and disregard. I was, whatever. We didn't know what we were. There was no category. I was practicing martial arts. I was practicing Taoism. So I was not, these are very nihilistic philosophies. They're not very nice. Once you look into them, you understand it's terrible. It's, that's why it's nirvishesha shunyavadi. Prabhupada came specifically to save us from this type of condemnation. That's why we're so grateful. Because it's these philosophies are so insidious. Like once you've taken it, it's like a poison. And the mind is you see, when you meet someone, you can understand that it's not even so much that they have any intellectual opposition to what you're saying, but they're just so contaminated. What did Prabhupada say? It's not brainwashing, it's brain cleansing. So it's so important that we address that the feasts, that the association, this is what saves people from this. Because they're looking, they just don't know it, they're looking for devotee association. They're looking for that association which will give them a higher taste. Just like everything else in Krishna consciousness, association is a higher taste. So we have to live up to that. We shouldn't be that devotee that doesn't know how to communicate, that doesn't treat the guest with the proper mood and attitude, that doesn't have the time to sit down and speak a few kind words. Because otherwise, how else can we repay what Srila Prabhupada has given us? It's very difficult. But we can repay him by bringing others out of that chaos of the material world to take shelter at his lotus feet. And eventually they will come to his home here in Vrindavan. We were looking on that Prabhupada's Jaladuta diary, and on the leaf page, you have your name, your address. So Srila Prabhupada, Abhay Charananda Bhaktivedanta, and his address, Chippiwada. But his home, it says home, Vrindavan. Right on that page. That's his home. So here we're in Srila Prabhupada's home. Such a special opportunity. One should not miss out on because obviously we're all here. We know the meaning, the esoteric meaning of Vrindavan. But Vrindavan is our opportunity to reconnect with everything that we have heard about since we came into the temple. To pay our obeisances, to touch our head to the holy dust, and to serve. This is the main thing, to serve. Not that I've come here as a tourist. Prabhupada used to condemn this mentality. He said, you cannot buy a ticket to Vrindavan. And obviously many people are purchasing tickets. But when they come, what is their consciousness? So have they actually come to Vrindavan? And what are they seeing? You can enter into Vrindavan through the agency of service, because that is the blessings of Srimati Radharani. She is the topmost servitor. And everything in Vrindavan is under her jurisdiction. Just like today we had to go apply for permission for one parikrama. Such a lengthy endeavor. You have to go to this place, you have to go to this SSP, you have to go to the circular officer, you have to go to so many places just to get permission. Because you have to bring vehicles, not just to walk to Govardhan or walk this place, but if you want to do anything. Especially in a place, because these are all protected. They don't want vehicles here at this time or that day or whatever. So that is such an endeavor. But you come here, nobody checks you. Nobody says you have to take out some permit, get some stamp, pay some bakshish. No, you just dive in. You go to the temple commander and you say, Prabhu, how can I serve you? How can I serve Srila Prabhupada in his home? Nobody's stopping. Very eager to help. Today we were cleaning inside Srila Prabhupada's samadhi after the temple closed in preparation for his holy 40th disappearance anniversary. So the scaffold is there, the workers have the hose pipe and they're throwing water. It's like Gundicha Marjanaja. So water is everywhere and water is flowing down. And this is only done once in a year. Because it's a big endeavor. Because you're putting water everywhere, in every crack, in every space, from the bottom to the very top when you go inside Prabhupada's chamber. All the way up to the very top. All raining down. And there's dust accumulated. Things are up there for 1 year, so much dirt. It's all running down. So people are coming and looking like this, and they're looking and looking. But nobody's saying, Prabhu, can I help? Can I come? What can I do? Because they're thinking, no, my service is back in my home temple. Or my service is here, or my service is there. Actually, our service is everywhere. It goes wherever I go. Because it's a service attitude. It's not some localized situation. If I don't have the service attitude, then I really don't have what it takes. I'm just doing it officially. I have to do it here because I can't live in the temple if I don't do it here. You hear people like that. Oh, I have to do this service. I have to do this. I have to do this. Otherwise, I'll get kicked out. But this is not service. This was not... When we joined the temple, it was understood. You began with the pots. Henry Street was famous for pots. Big, huge pots. You know, you see them, they only come like this from India. Big brass pots. At least 3 feet wide. And maybe 2.5, 3 feet deep. And you have to actually get in the pot to clean it almost. You have to lean over it. Such huge pots. But we were cooking for, in those days, the temple had 130 devotees. And this was just 2 brownstone buildings. But 130 devotees. People used to think there were thousands of devotees in New York City. Only 130. But we would go to this place to chant, and this place to chant, in airports and everywhere. They thought, and you asked anyone on the street how many Hare Krishnas there are in New York? Must be thousands. Must be thousands. So it was it's not by numbers. It's by sincerity. So many books, so many dedicated devotees, and if you can imagine, all the paintings that you see in these books were painted in Henry Street, in that Brooklyn temple, basically. Not Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's some, but all the other books. Because since 1975, all the devotees associated with the press moved to Los Angeles. So in 1975, we lost a significant aspect of our population, Henry Street population. But this was nothing in whatever was required to assist Srila Prabhupada. He wanted to print the Chaitanya Charitamrita, 17 volumes, and he wanted it done now. And the devotees were able to accomplish this in less than 4 months. 3 and something months. 17 volumes. Amazing. How could it be done? And who are those great devotees? You know, devotees like Gopi Puranadana and Jayadvaita Maharaj, and so many, all the editors died. Some are no longer with us. You know. But everybody contributed for this great endeavor. And now the whole world has Chaitanya Charitamrita. And those are all the devotees from that one Brooklyn temple, basically. So much can be done with just a few devotees. Just imagine, now we have a worldwide movement. Tens of thousands of devotees. So we should be printing 17 volumes of the next edition of Chaitanya every 3 months in another language. Because English is already there. One time, just after Srila Prabhupada left, we were in India. And I forget where we were. We were in Mayapur, but I forget what month. But one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers saw that I was taking photos. And I had an old Nikon F-series camera. And he said, oh, can you take my photo? I said, sure. I could take your photo. So I inquired, what do you want? How should I take your photo? His name was Damodar Maharaj, Prabhupada's godbrother. So what am I taking it for? Because, you know, when I take this photo, it's not like today or digital. I can download, send it to you. You know, I'm taking this film back to America to develop. You know, 64 Ektachrome slide film, whatever it was. And I said, oh, I've just completed Chaitanya Charitamrita in English. I looked at him, I said, Maharaj, you know that Chaitanya Charitamrita has already been translated by Srila Prabhupada Bhakti, because they call Prabhupada Bhakti-Vedanta Swami. It's already been done several years ago. He was like, it was like that he did, because it's India. They didn't know. Or at least he feigned that he didn't know. Like that. But Prabhupada, the point is, Prabhupada was always ahead of everyone else. Always ahead. So this is our legacy. We should never be behind the curve, because that's not Prabhupada's style. When you read Srila Prabhupada and you see everything contemporaneously, he was way ahead of everyone, philosophically, even in some of his responses, how he would phrase them in such a way in his response to these newspaper reporters. And you listen to these interviews, and Prabhupada is almost toying with these people, because they're just like children to him. But it was so nice to be associated with someone who commanded that much respect. We felt proud. We felt, I can't say more than that, proud that we had somehow, that he accepted us as his disciples. It was a great honor. A great honor. It was just so difficult, to put into words. But whenever we were with Srila Prabhupada, it was just like being in the association of like what he said, the ambassador to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He had to us that stature. And it was obvious when you see the videos, and even in this latest release, people who have seen it, who otherwise never met Srila Prabhupada, they had to have some spiritual inclination, at least from what I saw, in order to get the full benefit of the movie. But one person I know who was a follower of, Mayor Baba, Paramahamsa Yogananda, basically impersonalists, Vivekananda, like that. He said, now I understand. Now I understand why you're following Srila Prabhupada. Because it's sometimes they don't, people just kind of shrug it off like this is just another cult. This is just another person. But he actually got it after seeing that movie. He says, now I understand. Because up to that point, they're thinking, we also have our own. Matter of fact, this person has a temple, and it's called the Temple of the Universe. And he's a very nice person. And I worked with him for many years. And he's very accomplished materially. And he's a published author, and he's on TV shows like Oprah and this and that, the other thing. And he's given very generously. He even gave Lakshmi for the Delhi temple construction, for the Alachua temple construction, just out of the goodness of his heart. But at that time, you could see all along, to him it was just we're just another temple. We're this temple and he's that temple. When he saw that movie, then he put all these things together and said, now I can understand. Who is Srila Prabhupada? Because this is a great thing. People go on and on about Vivekananda, the Chicago Exposition of 1896, and there was nothing. There was nothing. There was some, little results, but nothing, basically. But Srila Prabhupada came like a thunderstorm. At the time of devastation, and just rained Krishna's mercy all over the planet. And nobody could avoid that flood of love of God. Nobody. And so even people 20, 30 years later, you see, they're getting that They had some association, and now they have a much greater appreciation. So just a matter of time before Srila Prabhupada is acknowledged as that catalyst. You know, we throw the term Jagat Guru. Prabhupada didn't actually like that term. He wasn't very fond of these designations because it's used by so many people, this term. So this, but people, others, everyone will recognize at some point that this was the person who changed the course of history, because they will be able to trace it back and see what was this point when Srila Prabhupada stepped foot in the United States in 1965, in Brooklyn. When he stepped ashore in Boston Commons, that wasn't his final destination. 2 days later, so September 17th was when he first arrived in Boston Commons. And we celebrate that, Prabhupada's arrival in the United States. But he arrived in Brooklyn. The steamship Scindia came into New York Harbor on the 19th of September. So 2 days later in New York. And from there he was met by a representative of his sponsor. Like that. So interestingly enough, our Henry Street Temple was in Brooklyn. The current temple is in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is a holy place also. And it has great potential. Some people are thinking that Brooklyn is just some washed up place. But Brooklyn is now the center of urban culture for the metropolitan area. And we're very fortunate to have that location by the grace of the devotees who had the task of searching these things out. And you never know. When my godbrother Toshan Krishna and I were looking for the temple after the move from Manhattan on 55th Street, for some time Radha Govinda were at one location. We thought that they would stay there in a Manhattan cultural center. But the GBC had other plans. They said, no, please find a bigger place. So again, we had to look. And after some time, we found this current location. And the facility and the price, everything was right. Neighborhood was a little bit depressed at that time. But that's a common thing. And you have to know or have some idea. And since we had already preached in Brooklyn and knew what the landscape was and how centrally located this temple is, the ease of access from all major hubs of transportation, it's satisfied our needs in that respect. And therefore we made the purchase and did the renovation, all for the pleasure of Sri Radha Govinda and Srila Prabhupada. So this is just history. But the history has great lessons. Sometimes there are success and sometimes there are mistakes. And we can learn from both. So we have to see these things analytically. It's more important than understanding what food is in the mode of goodness. What's important is to understand that everything has to be done for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. And this is the ultimate purport in the divisions of faith. Because regardless of because this type of classification exercises material vision, covered with a thin veneer of spiritual understanding. It is not appropriate, actually, to try to make these. This is what the materialists do. They put everything in categories. And they put it in a category for what? What's the purpose? So that they can claim some knowledge. It's not real knowledge. It's not that they've discovered anything. But they endlessly, books. You go, the library where I worked, it's a huge, it used to be the largest library in the world before they made the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. And there are areas in the library you cannot access if you're just coming in to get a book. They're called stacks. And in between the floors, there are multiple floors. So in between one floor in this huge building, there are 3 other floors that you cannot see and access. Well, they store all the books that are not on the shelves, that are only accessed for research purposes. They cannot be taken out. They cannot be borrowed. Books that are hundreds of years old, first editions, very famous, very valuable. But it's all nothing. It's nothing. Just a collection of paper, ultimately. No real knowledge. But when we were young, we thought that, no, this is where knowledge is, in books. And we were correct. We just didn't know which books. That was our fault. Somehow we had the intuition that the truth is out there, as people say. And the tendency is you cannot read every book that exists. So we were very fortunate. So the first book I got that led me to the temple after the mantra card was a book called Reservoir of Pleasure. Remember Reservoir? We used to print them on Henry Street, ISKCON Press. And we distributed them by the thousands, by the millions. Just a thin pamphlet. It's still printed. We still print it today. It's very attractive. It had 2 essays. And, of course, the one that struck me was, the essay was, Who is Crazy? Prabhupada had an essay called Who is Crazy? And, of course, the title essay was Reservoir of Pleasure. Krishna, the Reservoir of Pleasure. So when I read that, you can say that there was a slight glimmer. I understood that this is unique because it's like a sample. It's just barely a few pages. You hold it like this. But I thought if just a few pages have this much knowledge, then I have to see what the other books are that the devotee was showing me that I didn't take, that big Bhagavad-Gita, because I didn't appreciate. But then I had the taste. And then I was eager. So it's necessary. Book distribution is absolutely essential. Give that sample of knowledge to someone. Then he wants the full taste. He wants the whole 10-course meal. We just got a sample. You know, when you go to these places, a lot of times the vendors, you know, you go, you pass all the sabji wallas, the fruit wallas, and they want you to taste their fruit. Who has the sweetest? And they give on a taste. Here, taste. They give you a piece of apple, a piece of orange. And then according to that taste, you buy so much. And of course, in India, that sample is not from the fruit that you've purchased. He keeps some sweet pieces on the side, and he gives you a bag full of all this kacha fruit. And you don't know till you get home, 10 kilometers away, 3 hours later, and you eat this piece of fruit, and it's, oh, what is this? But that's okay. That's a lesson. That's another lesson. So anyway, Krishna is very kind to us. He gives us so much. Difficult to understand and appreciate everything. But if we do it slowly, in the association of devotees, we are guaranteed success. This is the point. People think, oh, I have to leave this ISKCON. I'm not getting... What did that one devotee say, our guy brother? He said, there's no bhajan here. He told Srila Prabhupada, there's no bhajan. That was his excuse. Prabhupada asked, why are you leaving? He said, there's no bhajan. What does that mean, bhajan? And he asked Prabhupada's blessings to seek out another guru. What a foolish person, huh? It's almost inconceivable. Ask Prabhupada's blessings to seek out another guru. And I'm sure he got one, but he wasn't happy. Yeah. Yes, you have my blessings to go to hell. That was Prabhupada's response. And in that response, I would see him wandering in Vrindavan because he thinks he's a scholar. This was the problem. Prabhupada said, over-intelligent. They study a little Sanskrit and then they think there's more intelligence in their spiritual master. It's very dangerous. He was one of Prabhupada's Sanskrit editors. And he wasn't the only one that happened to. So it's a very dangerous thing. You're reading something and there's no purports, typically. It's just a Sanskrit. Sometimes there's purports. But it's that whether or not you have the ability to appreciate according to your level of understanding the reality of what you're reading. There's a different, even when we read Bhagavad-Gita the first time, I understood something, and then I read it the second time and I thought I'm reading a different book. What happened? And then I read it the third time, and again, it's a different book. But it's not a different book, but the consciousness is different. Cheta Darpana Marjanam. Cleansing the mirror of the heart. So this is, and these things everyone knows now. In the beginning, it was, we appreciate it, but now it's a firm fact. How according to Darajas Tamo Bhavo Kama Lobha Deyasche. As you're coming through the modes of material nature, there's purification. Just like it's described here in a simple way, using the example of food. But food is not our problem in ISKCON. But consciousness can still be a challenge. One has to cultivate that consciousness. It's not happening without endeavor. And we know all the shlokas, Yayatama, Prapadyante, all these things are there. Krishna's, and actually Prabhupada gave an analogy here in Vrindavan, using that shloka, Yayatama, Prapadyante. He said, people are coming to Vrindavan after their work life, married life, family life, and they're trying to make arrangements with the family, with the wife, saying, my dear wife, my dear children, I'm going to Vrindavan now. I am retired. Everything I have is yours. My 2 lakhs, 2 crores, land, house, property, everything is yours. You simply give me 200 rupees for my maintenance. Okay? So he's given his wife and family and children 2 lakhs, 2 crores, everything. And he wants to go to Vrindavan, and for Krishna, he's giving 200 rupees or keeping 200 rupees. Or even less, because he's thinking, I have to eat, I have to sleep, I have to whatever. So Prabhupada said, okay, Krishna is very smart. He said, so if you are for me 200 rupees, then I am for you 200 rupees. Yayatama Prapadyante. So if you are for Krishna 200 rupees, then he's for you 200 rupees only. Very simple, nothing complex. You don't need 10 levels of philosophical understanding to appreciate the simple truths, that accompany Bhagavad-Gita. One has to just practice what he's learned according to his realization. And that will allow him to Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir Yata Deve Tataguru, to have that faith in the spiritual master and Krishna, and to gradually realize whatever he has read, because that is the real food stuff. We've read, someone thinks that, and sometimes you wonder, someone comes to Krishna consciousness, they stay for some time and they go, and you wonder, okay, how many books did they read? How deeply did they try to understand and appreciate? How many questions did they ask? And what did they do in their short time? And what led them to leave? And mostly, from my analysis, they did not form any friendship, meaningful friendship, with the devotees. They maintained some separate attitude for whatever reason. Somebody's thinking, oh, I don't know this person, or whatever. They have so many material excuses. In our Henry Street Temple, there were devotees from all levels of life, economic, social. Nobody was wearing a label. I'm MSN, MBA, this, that, the other. No. But if you talk to the devotees casually, you would find out, yes, this person went to this school, he was a graduate, double certificate, this, that, the other. But nobody, we were all doing exactly the same thing. Serving the spiritual master, serving Krishna. And forming lasting bonds of friendship that have come up to this point, 44 years now. For me, I'm a new person. I'm not as old as excuse me, I'm not as senior as some of my God brothers. But still, those friendships, those are very special. Very special. And they allow you to, in difficult times, to have the confidentiality, because what does it say? We know that this, the dati pratigrinati guyamakyati pripsiti. It's not that I'm giving this everybody a gift. What is the gift? The gift is that we share the gift of Krishna consciousness with one another. You know, if there's some difficulty, then I'm there for you. Come, let's discuss. What's the problem? And this has been a great, how can you say, neglected aspect of the movement. We have so many things, devotee care, devotee this, but it is up to the individual to reach out and make these relationships. Not that you go to an office and you have a relationship. You know, I mean, that's there. That can be there. If there's nothing else, by all means. In some material distress, one has to take shelter. He has no other recourse. Then yes, there's always that safety net. Always that safety net. One should be having his close friends all the time. He shouldn't have to. He has his. That is just a fact, a personal realization. I can't say that everyone has the same realization. But I know that my friendships in Krishna consciousness were the most valuable thing. The most valuable thing, the association of devotees who are pure in heart, pure in motive, pure in actions, who actually lead by example, teach by example, and serve the spiritual master selflessly. So if you find such devotee friends like that, then you must take advantage of the situation. Otherwise, you're only missing out on this great opportunity. So I can just, now that time is short, should ask if there's any questions or comments. And this Prabhu had first, and Krishna Murti. And the schedule? That, you know, it's a funny thing. We never thought of it that. Prabhupada said from morning till 10 o'clock at night. That was our hours. From morning till 10 o'clock at night. We would rise early. Yes. Okay.
One time, Prabhupada was giving some donation to the Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada asked people to
double the donation.
The donation. So Prabhupada, he agreed. But then after some time he went to Prabhupada and he told Prabhupada, Prabhupada, we do Buddhist distribution, we do Harinam, we do deity worship, we collecting Lakshmi. Practically we working 18 hours a day.
Yes, 18 hours a day.
Prabhupada say 18 hours only, or program is 24 hours a day.
But at least 18. From morning till night. Prabhupada told us you should be asleep within 10 seconds of your head hitting the pillow. And there was no question. Matter of fact, I used to remember devotees falling asleep before their head hit the pillow. You would see, on the way down, they would already be asleep. Standing up, they would be asleep. As a matter of fact, at that time when I joined, there was a transitional period between one temple president and another, and our GBC man, he wasn't our GBC, but he was put by Prabhupada there, Rupanuga Prabhu. He was telling that, because we would go out on distribution on the subways and whatnot, and we had an order. It was actually what you could call a standing order. We were not allowed to sit down. And the reason we weren't allowed to sit down is because as soon as we sat down, we would fall asleep. And it was, nobody wanted, our temple authorities realized that that's not a good example that the devotees are sitting on the subways and they're sleeping. So we would distribute, but we had to stand all the time on the subways, back and forth, until we came back to the temple. And that was basically all day. Now, everyone had to come back by Sundar Arti. So you went out, morning time, whatever, devotees would rise very early, 2:30, that finished their rounds even before going out. And then depending on if you were book distribution or Harinam, you would go one or the other. But then everybody came back for 7 o'clock Arti. Prabhupada called it spiritual sandwich. Morning program, evening program. And the 7 o'clock Arti in Henry Street was very special. You can find these kirtans. They're called New York kirtans. They were famous. All the different devotees there. Some of the artists, Parikshit and Bharadwaj and Agni Dev, and before that, Mangalananda, Jai Sachi. Jai Sachi a little later, but Jai Sachinanda, so Santosh, but many, many devotees. Very ecstatic kirtans, New York kirtans. He was a little later, but yeah, Vishnugadar. Such special. So everybody rushed back to the temple, rushed into the shower and got dressed and came to the temple for Radha Govinda. That was our reward for the hard work of the day. That's all you needed. You didn't, and after that, then everybody went up to the gallery where all the paintings hung, where we would do plays and whatnot, and read Krishna book, hot milk, and popcorn. We used to have popcorn. Everybody know what popcorn is?
Yeah, they sell it.
Yeah, separate. They sell it in Lord Bazaar, but here if you eat it, it's sandy. They cook it in sand. So I tasted it one time when I first came to live here many years ago, and I was thinking, you're eating this popcorn, but there's sand in it. I said, how can you enjoy it? It's like sweet rice with sand, but popcorn with sand. So I never tried it again after that. It was terrible. Now they may have the different method. They would put the kernels in hot sand, in a wok, and they would just move it around inside the wok, and the hot sand would pop the corn. So that was the old Vrindavan popcorn. Maybe they've made some improvement. No more sand, just different pop. Prabhu, you had a question.
Give him the microphone so people can hear it.
Oh, it's going to go all the way around and around.
And there's people listening on the radio, they can't hear
Okay.
it.
New York, Brooklyn was a fertile ground where the devotees was created. On the street where I live, my childhood friend, I found out just a few years ago that his older sisters, Samapriya.
Ah, Samapriya. Sure, yeah. I know Samapriya.
They were everywhere. And in my particular neighborhood, Canarsie.
Yeah, Brooklyn, yeah.
A bunch of devotees
Sure.
came from there.
So many.
It was just perfect timing.
Actually, Prabhupada indicated, that's why in the Lilamrita it's called planting the seed. Because the seeds were already planted, he said, by my Guru Maharaj. And actually in Chaitanya Bhagavad it implies that the Senapati Bhakt, the commander-in-chief, will go to that place to recover those souls who have been strategically placed. Just like when you have an army in a battle, just like in Kurukshetra, the armies were strategically placed in order to maximize their effectiveness against the opponent. So somehow or other, Prabhupada knew to come to New York that this was fertile ground. Because we say somehow or other, but we know that it was Krishna. And these early devotees that were there and came to assist Srila Prabhupada, these are all special souls, no doubt. Whatever has gone on since then, this is all historical, meant for our appreciation and understanding. But no one could deny the significance and the contribution, that helped this great movement to blossom. when we think, we had a program at Tompkins Square Park over the course of the summer with Bhakti Maharaj and all New York. We just put out an invitation for New York devotees, please come. And many came, many who hadn't been actively participating for whatever reason. It happens, devotees kind of move to the margin of the society. They're not, no engagement or whatever, something. But we had an ecstatic kirtan. And we had Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja feast at 26 2nd Avenue with a big gathering, which overflowed into what they now call the Bhakti Center. It used to be the sanctuary. So very, very pleasant. And actually when we were cleaning in the evening, after everybody leaves, this is the nectar. You get to clean. You appreciate the fruits of the hard work that goes in, and you see who remains at the end to do some of the remainder things. So it's always nice. You get to preach to sometimes you can grab a new person, say, can you help clean up a little bit? Stick around for a few minutes if you want to. And it was probably about close to midnight almost. We were still cleaning. And all of a sudden I see in the door, who comes indoors? Pradyumna. This is our godbrother Pradyumna. Prabhupada used to call Pradyumna, well, he still calls him Panditji. He was Panditji. So Pradyumna is a very special devotee. He has wisdom beyond his years. And he's completely detached from the material, how can you say, concept of life. He does his service in such a way, and he works a very important service, interfaith relations for the United Nations, and then he has a teaching position. I can't remember, Rutgers or Princeton, very prestigious institutions. But he's still the same simple, friendly soul that I knew back then. And this, you have to appreciate these qualities. These are the qualities of a devotee. Someone who has that equanimity, equipoised, and he sees things through the transcendental understanding of the scripture. Because he studied everything in the original Sanskrit and helped Srila Prabhupada in all of these translations. So you meet such great souls like this. And this movement has many. Right? We just have to sometimes seek them out a little bit, get their mercy. They're less like a treasure house. You just have to unlock it. One, just like in the Gita it says, pariprashnena. Has to be some submissive inquiry. Not, you don't get anything by force, anything good. So we have to, I was able to sit and talk, and that for me was a great, how can you say, gift at the end of a long day. To sit and talk with an old godbrother, who I know is very dear to Srila Prabhupada. Appreciate his contribution and his association. So we want to associate with all the devotees. So, and this is what Kartik is not about coming to Vrindavan at a certain month, a certain time, and offering a lamp. That's there. Prabhupada used to describe it like for the newcomers. Kartik is for the newcomers, to attract people who might not otherwise come. And I've mentioned this before, but Prabhupada was the one who gave us this hint. But the real mercy of Vrindavan is every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, if you can take it. If you can do the service here, it is not a place to just wander around and adopt some Babaji vesh, some artificial dress. This is not for those who are What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad-Gita? Those are dear who are bringing people to Krishna consciousness, who are distributing this knowledge. So we want to be instruments in that regard. We don't have any other purpose. We didn't join ISKCON to become yogis, or to become cooks, or to become anything like that. We joined to serve Krishna, and that's what we should do. And we should make sure that, and the benefit of having good friends is that they will tell you very clearly, Prabhu, what's going on? I didn't see you in Mangalarti. I haven't seen you chanting your rounds. I saw you doing something that you shouldn't have been doing. You need friends to keep an eye on you. And if you're fortunate, this will allow you to develop that humility, which is all important, which will allow you to have a much greater appreciation of what Srila Prabhupada has given us. Because it takes that much, essentially. Otherwise, we take it for granted. We think, oh, this is just a society. I can come and go as I please. No, it is not like that. You have another question? You want to think someone else? Anybody? Wait, Maharaj has a question. No, wait. That Prabhu, okay. Give the microphone to that Prabhu right behind you, and then we'll come back to you. Right behind you. He had his hand up. Thank you, bro.
Very much for the lecture. You were saying that we should smash this nihilistic philosophy. And once my leg was hurt, and the devotee was healing me, and he told me this is very possibly when you offend somebody from some other religion, then you could have your leg hurt. And I have a little bit of fear to attack somebody, but to not offend them.
Well, it's interesting. Did everyone understand the question? That the devotee on Sankirtan, he's afraid to challenge someone because another devotee told him, that if you offend someone else's religion, you will get some physical harm to you. But Prabhupada never told us that, and I have never seen that. And it's not that you should take me as an example, but I'm sure I've offended many in challenging other people's philosophies in the course of Sankirtan or book distribution or various things. And we do it very gently, but there's no compromise. It's not that we make some equivalent argument that your philosophy is as good as our philosophy, or that they're all good. No. We probably put them in the perspective that Christian philosophy, for example, is just like the Ten Commandments. What you tell a child. Do this, don't do this. Restrictions. Because the nature of the people, the audience, was very degraded. You have to tell them things. Don't steal. Don't have adultery. Don't kill. Who needs to be told these things? There's a common thing. I need to be told not to kill. Or not to have illicit sex. So we also have those rules and regulations. But those we understand are and the pillars of sinful life. There is a philosophical basis. It's not just don't do this, like you tell a child. But we don't, like I said, don't worry. You should not fear. Prabhupada told us in Mayapur, Lord Nrsimhadev is our only shelter. Prahlad Maharaj, if you read that 7th canto, The Science of Religion, all about Prahlad Maharaj's interactions with Lord Nrsimhadev. You can't have any fear once you complete that. But like I said, we're not inimical. We understand, that a person may be attached to their particular philosophy, and we want to give them a chance to come to Krishna consciousness by gradual, and that's why prasadam, the secret weapon. So if we can say, let's go have prasadam at our nearest restaurant, and then we can discuss this further. Or come to our Sunday feast when we have more time, because on the street I can't talk. You have to give them an invitation and let them come. Because the thing that Prabhupada told us is what can your 3 minutes of speaking do to change that person's lifelong conception? What can your 3 minutes do? Nothing. But you have to give them a book, or you have to get them into a different situation. And another thing in Henry Street was that the feast was set up in such a way that every guest had a devotee sitting next to him. It wasn't that you could have a bunch of devotees sitting on the side, eating together, separately. You had to sit next to a guest and give him your association, answer his questions, and speak the philosophy. So that was just the way the devotees arranged it. It was very nice. I can remember the first time I came, the devotee sat down next to me, and I had questions. Oh, what's this food preparation, or what's that, or what's going on in that room downstairs where everybody's jumping? So I got my questions answered. And
Can I add something more further?
sure,
Because we're doing Sankirtan every day.
where?
In UK, I think we have a perfect answer. I just wanted to add that, when you've tried everything that Prabhuji is saying, the person in front of you is very inimical, is trying to obviously then you have to preach strongly, so that you plant some doubts in his head about what he's doing. We have sword weapons.
Right.
Prabhupada has given us all the
Yeah,
answers.
if they're inimical, yes.
And that can happen. So
Yeah, happens all the
try
time.
your best in the way that you have mentioned. And you heard, there's a book called Prabhupada's Preaching Strongly. In there, the advice is given when you're out in the street, you're a soldier, and you try your best to befriend them and to give them the book, because Prabhupada can preach to the book. But if they're not going to take the book, but they have the idea that they're going to try and blaspheme you, so you have to be very strong. And you stick the principle in a Christian, you say, well, what about the thou shalt not kill? Stick to that point. You see, they don't have any weapons.
But not more than 3 minutes. In this setting, thank you, Prabhu. That was very enlightening.
I liked what you were talking about, how we did in the old feast days, and also how Prabhupada in the beginning, he would take the time to get to know what the American people's mood is. But it's funny, like in Laguna Beach, we have a few devotees there, a large amount of people come. But many of the people just go and sit by themselves. And strangely enough, what's strange is that the Indian men seem to have a harder time communicating with American men. The Indian women seem to be able to go and talk to an American woman very easily. Somehow the social skills between the Indian women and the American ones are easier. But somehow we have a difficulty sometimes getting people to, as I say, just go make friends with them and tell them a little bit.
Yeah.
But they all sit in one corner. And how do we gradually change this?
You go sit in the corner with them.
Yeah.
Just like what Prabhu was saying, we used to have what's called the Bhakti program. And there was always a Bhakti program, but then someone decided on the West Coast, the West Coast was innovative. That was the key thing, innovative. So somehow or other, the devotees started, Danavir Maharaj started this Bhakti program idea. And it came to 55th Street. And we were doing it on a simple level. But then for the program, we commandeered certain floor space in the 55th Street Temple. Ram Roy knows well. But one devotee, I remember one time, he came and he thought he was coming for something else. We had sponsored a concert in the park with one Alice Coltrane, who was the daughter of John Coltrane, a famous jazz artist. So she has an initiated name. She's initiated by somebody. I don't know. I can't remember who. But we had a program at Central Park, and devotees came. Brought people back, guests back. And this particular guest thought he was coming back to meet Alice Coltrane. And when he ended up in the Bhakta, 7th floor of the 55th Street Temple, and he was listening to myself and another devotee, my partner Urjasvat, he was disappointed, and not more than disappointed, he was pretty upset. And so he wasn't receptive at all. And so he just started going really, how can you say, offensive, what we would consider offensive, just very angry, but it's actually just a typical reaction for someone in New York who's disappointed. Just cursing and screaming and yelling. We were just like, whoa, this is, I said, wait a second. Okay, you don't want to be here? There's the door. And I just told him, I said, you know, you can come back when you have a different attitude. And I think I even gave him a book, because we had some old Bhagavad-Gitas. And when someone's like that, I'm not going to give him something new or some, but, you know, we had, you know, you get the damaged books. I said, take this. Try it on your own, and, you know, come back when you're ready. And then a couple of weeks later, he had obviously read the book, came back, completely different person. And he actually joined the temple. And he's a very nice devotee, and was big Sankirtan devotee for years. But that first instance, he was, you know, under other circumstances, that type of attitude would be a fist fight. But, you know, when we become devotees, we give these things up unless there's an immediate threat to another devotee. But that's how heavy it was. But Krishna took care of everything. You just have to keep your cool. You know, remember, Krishna's in his books. Just Bhagavad-Gita solved the whole problem. Because it could have been just the opposite. We could have reacted the way he was reacting. And then he may have never come back. I mean, I got heavy with him, but not that heavy. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any other questions? Maharaj has a question. I don't think the microphone reaches back there. I'm only kidding.
Thank you so much for the Sangha, essentially, because this brings us closer to Prabhupada. But the question is related to selfishness, in the sense that probably it's not a stereotype question, because everyone has an eternal individuality. It's like having a plate of Mahaprasada, and everyone understands it's absolute, but we choose a particular sweet and salty preparation because it's our taste. In a society where Krishna declares that there are 4 kinds of people who are meant to become devotee among them, we can analyze, we are categorizing there. In the course of time, the principle of selfishness turns, for those who remain, aspiring for more, and to focus more into what is being discovered by spiritual self. Then it turns into a different challenge, because, as you were mentioning, I may prefer not to be so much in company and meditate and define and sing and relish, which is my right now after so many lifetimes, encountering Krishna through Srila Prabhupada. He's asking so many things, but he's interested in how we chant and all these things. So how, although as I say, it's very difficult because it's not a stereotype, we are all individuals, but in an institution like Prabhupada established, what will be, from your standpoint of view, elaborating what will be the principle of selfishness that most pleases Prabhupada?
I mean, my concept of selfishness is focused on, you know, what we would consider our immediate bodily needs. You know, if we're making concessions and excuses not to serve Krishna, then that's selfishness. And the opposite, where I minimize my bodily necessities. As like we see, we praise the 6 Goswamis because they were renounced. But this renunciation was not artificial. They weren't doing it for some show. There wasn't an audience. We understand it now in its actual perspective. And if a person can achieve what, any of the Goswamis achieved, then he has a right to adopt that lifestyle. Otherwise, then he's a pretender. So selfishness for us, selfishness to serve Prabhupada, not to keep the service to myself, but to give the opportunity to others. So this is my limited understanding. Because we have to be very generous, very liberal with the mercy. It's actually just like if someone opens up the storehouse of love of God. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is liberated. So there's no end to it. So just like when we're distributing prasadam sometimes, it's like we have a huge pot of halava, and people can take as much as they want. There's almost seemingly no end. And I have no fear that I'm going to exhaust the supply. So this is just like when we're chanting on the street every day. There's no limit to how much chanting can go on. It cannot be exhausted. It's not any material calculation. So we have to act like that in all of our spiritual activities. We act in such a way that we're giving of ourselves and at the same time minimizing our own necessities. Not fanatically. It's not that I don't sleep or I don't eat, but these things have to be considered. What is in relationship to my mature understanding, not a question of immature understanding. But if I have an opportunity to preach, to go to some situation, or to take prasadam in Balaram Hall, I should be choosing to go to preach. I should have that level of commitment that I can afford to miss one day's prasadam. I can probably afford to miss several days. I'm not going to die. But I should never miss the opportunity to preach. That should be selfishness. I should be selfish to never miss the opportunity to preach. So when it presents itself, you should take it. Because that is a gift from Krishna. And if you seize it, what do the karmis say? They say, carpe diem. Seize the day. This is their great thing, their big motivational speak. You go there and you pay some guy a couple $100 an hour and he tells you, he stands on the stage and he says, seize the day. But we know that. We've been doing that since 1966. Every day we seize. And we hold it tight for spiritual purposes. No day should be wasted. At least not in Krishna service. So I think we have to end. RT starting. Is there any more questions? Did you have another question, Bert?
Yeah. As you were speaking about that you were falling asleep when you sit down.
On the subway, if we sat down.
We sometimes try to do more, but then we are sleepy and we cannot sleep in the Bhagavatam class. And
No, that's why you have to stand up in Bhagavatam class. That happens. Prabhupada, you hear, if you listen, there's one lecture in Mayapur, it probably says, stand, stand. Because there was a devotee who was falling asleep. And Prabhupada told him to stand. At first you have to listen carefully because it's right in the middle of what he's speaking. And all of a sudden you hear him say, stand.
Because some senior devotees...
Well, they're all senior from back then. This was 1976. But working hard in India, it's a little tough. You don't get exactly what, the same schedule. You're jet lagged. You don't even know it. In those days, there wasn't a term for it. And so, devotees were falling asleep in Prabhupada's class. Prabhupada told them to stand. But I have that experience. I think in every class except one, I was standing. Because even in the presence of Prabhupada, we were work, like I said, 18 hours a day, more, 19 hours a day. We barely slept 5 hours in those days. And people used to challenge us. They say, you're sleep deprived. This is a cult. You're brainwashed. And it's a fact. We were sleep deprived. But we didn't care. We didn't care. So we had to stand up to listen to Srila Prabhupada. But we listened. We did. Actually, if I wasn't standing, then I wouldn't have been noticed the first time. Prabhupada thought, who is this person standing? So, I wasn't that far away from him. But everybody else is sitting and I'm standing because I was falling asleep. Because we had been up not just 18 hours, we were up the whole 24-hour cycle preparing for his arrival. And we hadn't even slept yet by the time of the first Srimad Bhagavatam class, from the previous day. Because we had just finished building his Vyasa-san and putting the final touches as he walked in the door. That's the way things used to work in those days, last minute, very last minute. And he's still sitting on that Vyasa-san in New York. So you get some mercy. You do these things for Prabhupada, and you can always remember. Like the children's books they used to have, I was there. So, you remember, I was there at that time. I was there. So I was there at the last minute, standing up because I couldn't sit down. So. Any other questions, comments? Srila Prabhupada ki jai.